The music represents our man, Chuck Smith. He is here, Dr. Rush. He teaches pass rush skills to guys around the NFL, veterans, guys in college, high schoolers, and he has a variety of clients in the NFL.
People on the street, Carl. He could be driving down the street and Chuck will see a guy and you'll jump out of the car. Next thing you know, this guy's got a swim move.
He's always teaching. Chuck, let's start, man, with the hire of Ryan Nielsen. We heard from him for the first time yesterday on the show as he spoke to the media. So the Falcons get a new DC. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited for a change. I like the fact that he's younger and a little more, I think, progressive from a standpoint of he's a defensive line coach that understands the importance of developing the guys up front. And also, like when he's kind of said in so many words that we're trying to build a new culture. We're basically starting from scratch outside of the big guy in the middle, Grady Jarrett. I really like him. I like the fact that he's developed talent. And even looking at Cam Jordan, look at the level Cam Jordan's been able to play at for so long. And you got to give the D-line coach a lot of credit because that's the guys who really developed those players.
It is. Big Chuck Smith with us, guys. We'll talk about who we saw at the Senior Bowl. But philosophy, Chuck, I know we've talked about coaches developing talent, and that's one of the things he talked about. We've got young guys, but the first thing first to make the young guys better, we got to get some free agents in here. But again, the idea that being aggressive, and I know that we've talked to you about it, it seems to fans like, man, when you're in that zone coverage and you have no pass rush, it just seems like any quarterback can pick you apart.
Yeah, because if you sit back in zone with a competent quarterback, that means first down. Same way with teams that rush three. If you sit back there and you let Tom Brady or any of the great quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes, sit back there, they're going to always find a hole. They're going to find a receiver that sat down. You got to be aggressive because the only chance you got against these high-performance, next-level quarterbacks is you got to be able to generate pass rush, and you got to be able to do it with multiple players. It's not going to be one player. And when you look at the teams that are in the dance now, they got 2, 3, 4 different guys. They got guys. Listen, the Eagles got Robert Quinn, a guy who's going to be on the Hall of Fame ballot. He's on the bench. They rotate a lot of guys. You look at the Chiefs, they've done good with drafting guys like Karlaftis, but also Chris Jones. It's just going to be important. You got to have the bodies. Now, we know that. Coach is behind the wheel a little bit on that. But the only way that you're going to ever be able to win a championship is be able to get after the quarterback, and you got to get Patrick Mahomes on the ground. And let me say this before we move on, Mike. I hear a lot of coaches, and I hear, man, we want to get him off the spot. Well, you get Patrick Mahomes off the spot, he's still effective. The only way you're going to have a chance, you got to get him on the ground. That's the only way you can guarantee success against these players, and that's going to be a great challenge for the Falcons as they continue to develop these pass rushers.
Chuck Smith, our guest, guys, here on Dukes and Bell. He'll join us on Friday. We'll predict what's going to happen on Sunday, and we'll look at some of the key matchups up front. Chuck, I watched this 30 for 30 Bullies of Baltimore. Mm-hmm. I thought about you because the attitude, that attitude of that defense was ridiculous. And, again, it's been 23 years, so we forget, right? I mean, how dominant, and then you start seeing the games and remembering certain things that took place. And I'm just wondering, they're saying they claim they're the best defense of all time. Who do you think is the best defense of all time? Who's your best?
Well, let me tell you, there's two that are below the best in my opinion. A lot of people say the 85 Bears, phenomenal, dominant. Richard Dent, the big guys, Hampton, McMichael in the middle. And to me, when you think about great defenses, they annihilate the opponent. So they fit that bill. The Ravens, there's no question the 2000 Ravens are in that mix. Dominant. You saw that. I've watched the Bullies of Baltimore, and it took me back, and I can't lie, the hair stood up on my arm because that's how we played. And when you saw Syracuse celebrating they hurt the quarterback, that's just how we played. And when you heard me the other day talk about Patrick Mahomes, when we were talking last week about I would do whatever I can to get him out the game. I might, if it's close, I'm going to take a shot. But to me, the greatest defense is the one that never gets talked about. It's the 91 Eagles, in my opinion. Reggie White, Clyde Simmons, Jerome Brown, all first-team All-Pros, Seth Joyner. But let me just drop this. They had 55 sacks. They had 43 forced fumbles.
Wow.
26 interceptions. They barely gave up over 2 yards versus the run. But guess what? Their offense, you think Trent Dilfer and those guys were bad for that 2000 Ravens. Randall Cunningham gets hurt in the first quarter. They don't even make the playoffs. To me, this team is the best defense of all time. They don't get credit because they never, ever built a legacy. They didn't get to build a championship. No one got to see them in championship runs. So I really believe, and it's the 1991 Philadelphia Eagles, and the D coordinator was Bud Carson, who inherited all Buddy Ryan's guys. But to me, that's the one. And most people will be like, wow, but you got to do your research. Those guys were incredible.
Also on that 30 for 30, guys, again, it's about the Bullies of Baltimore. You can check it out because we'll use it as a reference point a lot this week. It's Chuck Smith with us, guys, on Dukes and Bell. Trent Dilfer talking about the different attitude of the you just said it. When Siragusa falls on Gannon, all right, he got the Raiders. He's knocked out. And nowadays, you can't touch him. He was intimating today's game. Brady, Rodgers, doesn't like contact. I'll throw a name at guys because I don't think it's fair to Chris Chandler. He was called Crystal Chandelier. That guy stood in the pocket and took punishment that nobody would take in today's NFL, right?
No way. I remember, people talking about Chris in those days, but it was the wild, wild west. I mean, guys were taking shots. Guys would try to put bounties on people, and I know people hated the Saints years ago about the bounty. We put bounties on people every week. We put money on it. We put bounties. We absolutely would be proud when we knocked the guy out. Now, what Trent Dilfer said to me is somewhat, it's somewhat factual, but it's unfair. You can't penalize these guys because the NFL changed the rules. Yeah, they benefit from not being able to reroute receivers and take, head shots. But part of this game was keeping it healthy. But those players will adjust. Tom Brady could have played in that era, in our era. Patrick Mahomes would have played in that era. They would have just adjusted their games to be in it now. I can tell you this, they would have came out games a lot more sore. They would have been a lot more guys out the game. But to me, Trent Dilfer, I just think he kind of got caught up in the moment. But I don't believe in what he says because you can't penalize these guys because they never got a chance to play in that era.
Chuck, you were a captain, played in the Super Bowl. I'm curious to know, Andy Reid apparently this week set up the Kansas City Chiefs facilities just like at home. And I'm wondering, how did you manage the week, the schedule, families, all the things that go with it? Because it's an experience only a few people get to actually experience. And, if you're lucky like Brady, you go back 10 times. Come on. Most guys only get one shot. So tell us about your experience and how you managed the week and the schedules and all that went on with it.
Well, the first thing is you got to manage the expectations of everyone around you. Because when you go to the Super Bowl and when you have the kind of run we had, everybody wants to be a part. And at some point they do become a part, but you're only limited on tickets. You're only limited on your time. And when you get there, one of the things that we did, we went crazy. Remember, we really the first team that had all that kind of hip hop, kicking it. We had all the celebrities, the rap cats around us because being from Atlanta, and I didn't personally, but a lot of guys in our team, they started getting appearances and Sports Illustrated and parties. You make a lot of money. And I think the difference is we played against the Broncos. They had already been there. They were way out in Fort Lauderdale. That most of those guys didn't do much. They were more focused. But I think, being the first time getting there, I think part of that was that we were new, we were young, and we had a lot of young guys that hadn't been there. And when those opportunities presented itself, I think that kind of affected us a little bit that week. I think guys at practice, you got to be able to practice, you got to be able to focus. For me personally, I actually didn't go down on the beach. I really didn't, but a lot of guys did. And I just think the way that Kansas City's handling it, I think the Eagles, they've been there. Both teams, they have a new age approach, and I think the guys understand more that, you got to kind of treat it truly as a business trip and not more as an opportunity just to, you want to win, but winning starts during the week. And our experience, I just think, we was from the A. We wasn't far removed from Freaknik, man. So, we we took it down to the beach. So I didn't think that helped us.
Yeah, they were right there, right in the action in Miami, right over by the airport. And the other thing, Chuck, I
Yeah.
remember that the families, Dan Reeves thought it'd be kind of cool that people have the families at the hotel, which I guess in hindsight got Eugene Robinson off the premises, and that got us in some other trouble.
Well, what happened with Eugene is just part of history, and it didn't help. But, that's part of it. Listen, this Super Bowl, it's you can't even dream of what it's like to be a part of it. It's just, I know a lot of fans get to experience it now, but it's everything, guys. I mean, listen, I remember in our hotel, I seen Dennis Rodman. He walking around. He got, a backpack full of money trying to invite us to go to his party. That's the kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man.
Yeah.
You got to think about it like this. I just remember the week before we went to the Super Bowl. I remember walking in a club. We're celebrating beating the Minnesota Vikings. I remember walking in the club. It's Diddy. It's Jay-Z. It's all those guys, J-Lo. All these stars, they're bigger now than obviously they were back then. They rocking Dirty Bird jerseys. So when you go, it doesn't stop. I'm in the tunnel next to Cher. I'm Tom Landry's right there.
Right.
So, it's an incredible, and I always say this, I would rather have gotten a one and lost than never gotten a one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I'd rather try and at least have the experience. Hey, before we let you go, 2016 we get there. We had the highest scoring offense in the NFL. Matt Ryan,
True.
Julio, Grady. All right.
Yeah.
So if they played your Super Bowl team, who wins? Who wins between the 16 Falcons and the 98 Falcons if we played a game?
Y'all about to get these Falcon fans turned up. All right, I'm not gonna be biased.
All right. Okay.
I'm not gonna be biased. I'll just say this: it'd be a good. Let me tell you where the matchup. I think we had the advantage. We had an 1,800-yard rusher in Jamal who could have won the MVP. We had 4 guys on our defensive line that had double-digit sacks at certain points in their career. Now, as far as offensive line, we're a little more veteran. We had 2,000-yard receivers, but I think we do. We had 2 guys in our secondary that made All-Pro, Pro Bowl, Jesse Tuggle, Pro Bowl. But I think like with Grady and some of those guys, I think they would have given us a lot of trouble. Obviously, Julio speaks for himself, and Matt Ryan was the MVP. I would say this: I give us the edge a little bit. But that's something that would be awesome that we could have all matched up because both of us were, had a magical season. But I just think we are from the Bullies of Baltimore era.
Right.
I think we would have tapped them boys out.
It was interesting because that offense, you could argue you could have run Jamal all day. And for guys who don't remember, it was Tony Martin and it was Terrence Mathis.
That's right.
That were great. O.J. Santiago. You had all these weapons. Biscuit was on that team on defense. We already talked about, guys, it was a lot of dogs, man. Carl, it's funny because one was more finesse with a good enough defense, and one was physical, smack you in the face
on both sides.
Correct.
Jamal would run you over like that. That's part of his
that
game.
Team beat a 14-2 Vikings team
So,
in their own house.
Yeah, I'm with you, Chuck. I agree with you, man. But we got to ask because that's all we can do right now is compare.
That's it.
One day, hopefully, we can get there as a franchise and win it. Chuck Smith, appreciate you as always, man.
Amen.
We'll talk to you on Friday. We'll get some of the breakdowns, O-line, D-line. We'll talk about the Kelceys and all this stuff, guys, as we get ready for Super Bowl 57. Chuck, get us out of here.
All right, guys. Live life every day like it's 3rd and 8. You guys have a great day.
You got it. Yeah, I'm going back. That's a great conversation because we throttled Seattle, beat Green Bay, Falcons that
Crush
year.
Green Bay.
Falcons beat San Francisco and then beat Minnesota in one of the great NFC championships of all time.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, everything that didn't happen in the regular season happened in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It really did. Morton Anderson missed a field goal, run game, short yardage we couldn't get. Tim Dwight was about the only thing that really did work, and a big kick return. But it was crazy. The Eugene Robinson, for those who remember, captain of the defense, he gets arrested the night before the Super Bowl. All the guys in the secondary up till 4 in the morning. Not what you want. Not optimal the night before the biggest game of your life.